Hello dear chess fans, my name is Eugene Grinis. Welcome to my free chess school, from beginners to advanced, open for everyone who want to improve own game. This video with some tactical exercises is intended for the beginners. There are some practical opening rules for beginners which are usually worth remembering. These rules are: 1. Open with either the e-pawn or the d-pawn. 2. Wherever possible, make a good developing move which threatens something. 3. Develop knights before bishops. 4. Pick the most suitable square for a piece and develop it there once and for all. Or do not move your piece twice without a strong reason. 5. Make 1 or 2 pawn moves in the opening, not more. 6. Do not bring your queen out early. 7. Castle as soon as possible, preferably on the king's side. 8. Play to get control of the center. 9. Always try to maintain at least 1 pawn in the center. 10. Do not sacrifice without a clear reason. 11. Complete your development before you attack. 12. Pay attention to your opponent's moves. 13. Avoid exchanging bishops for knights. And rule number 14. Fight for space. Now let's take a look at the following game. e4, rule number 1. e5. Both whites and blacks' initial moves, e4 and e5, are perfectly natural and normal. Both assist development and affect central squares. Rule number 8. Play to get control of the center. Most of the openings after e4, e5, open games, lead to open positions. Rapid effective development and king safety are the most important factors. In most of these openings, the key move for black to equalize is d7, d5. It may be adopted as a good working rule that once black succeeds in playing d5 without any immediate harmful consequences, he has equalized. d4. Attacking the e5 pawn with a pawn. Pawn takes pawn, the best continuation. c3. White sacrifices a pawn. Pawn takes pawn on c3, accepting the gambit. Bishop c4. Developing the bishop and sacrificing the second pawn. This opening is called Danish Gambit. A gambit is an opening where one player gives up material with the intention of securing an advantage in time or space. In Danish Gambit, white gives up 2 pawns to get excellent diagonals for his bishops. Black can, if he wishes, accept everything and hold on to it. but white's attack is extremely hard to meet. Pawn takes pawn on b4. Bishop takes pawn, developing the bishop. Knight f6, developing the knight and attacking the e4 pawn. But this is not a very good move. Better is d5, giving a pawn back. With this move, black can force a favorable simplification. Bishop takes pawn, and only now black plays knight f6, developing the knight and attacking the bishop on d5. Here white can play bishop takes pawn on f7, check. Discovered, check. King takes bishop, sacrificing the queen. Queen takes queen. Bishop b4, check. Discovered, check. Queen d2, the best continuation for white. Bishop takes queen, check. Knight takes bishop. Rook e8, and black has much the better of the ending because his queenside pawn majority can advance rapidly. Let's go back to this position. In another game, black played in this position bishop b4, check. King f1. This is not a good move. Better was knight c3. Knight f6, developing the knight and attacking the bishop on d5. Queen a4, check. A double attack. Knight c6, developing the knight. Bishop takes knight on c6, check. Pawn takes bishop. Black is already better now. Queen takes bishop on b4. This is a huge mistake. Now, can you find mate in 4 in this position? Please pause the video. The first move is queen d1, check. Queen e1, the only move. If you didn't find mate in 4, can you find mate in 3 in this position? Please pause the video. Bishop a6, check. Knight e2, the only move. If you didn't find mate in 3, can you find mate in 2 in this position? Please pause the video. Bishop takes knight, check. The bishop can't be taken since the white queen is pinned. King g1, the only move. Queen takes queen, checkmate. Let's go back to the game. Knight f6 was played. Knight c3, developing the knight and defending the e4 pawn. Knight c6, developing the knight. Knight f3, developing the knight. Knight a5, attacking the bishop on c4. But rule number 4: do not move your piece twice without a strong reason. In this position, white plays bishop takes pawn on f7 check, sacrificing the bishop. King takes bishop, e5, attacking the knight on f6. Black plays knight to c4, attacking the bishop on b2. Pawn takes knight on f6. Queen e8 check. If knight takes bishop, then follows queen d5 check. For example, king to e8, f7 check, king e7, the only move, queen g5 check, king takes pawn on f7, queen takes queen, winning. Let's go back to the game. Queen e8 check was played, king to f1. Knight takes bishop on b2. Queen d5 check. In this position, black actually resigned. He has no defense. If, for example, queen e6, then how can white win material in this position? Please pause the video. Knight g5 check. Knight fork, winning the queen. Let's go back to the game. Queen d5 check was played. If now king takes pawn on f6, then follows rook e1, developing the rook and attacking the queen with a decisive attack. For example, queen to g6, queen d4 check. If now king to f7, then how can white win material in this position? You have 10 seconds for it. Please pause the video. Knight e5 check, winning the queen and the game. Let's go back to this position. Queen d4 check. If now king to f5, can you find mate in 2 in this position? Please pause the video. Queen e5 check, king g4, the only move. If you didn't find mate in 2, can you find mate in 1 in this position? You have 10 seconds for it. Please pause the video. h3, checkmate, pawn mate. Now let's take a look at the following game. e4, rule number 1. e5, d4, attacking the e5 pawn with a pawn. Pawn takes pawn, the best continuation. c3, white sacrifices a pawn. Pawn takes pawn on c3, accepting the gambit. Bishop c4, developing the bishop and sacrificing the second pawn. Danish Gambit. Pawn takes pawn on b2. Bishop takes pawn, developing the bishop. Bishop b4, check, developing the bishop. Knight c3, developing the knight. Knight f6, developing the knight and attacking the e4 pawn. Knight g to e2, developing the knight and sacrificing the e4 pawn. Knight takes pawn on e4. Better was knight c6, developing the knight. Knight takes pawn on e4 was played. White castles. Rule number 7. Secure your king, castle as soon as possible, preferably on the king's side. Knight takes knight on c3. Knight takes knight. Bishop takes knight on c3. If black castles, then follows knight d5, attacking the bishop on b4. And on the retreat of the bishop, for example, bishop to c5, white plays queen to g4, threatening mate in 1 on g7. g6 has to be played. Knight f6, check. King to g7. Queen h4, threatening mate in 1 on h7. h5. Knight takes pawn on h5, double check. King to g8. Knight f6, check. King g7. Now can you find mate in 1 in this position? You have 10 seconds for it. Please pause the video. Queen h7, checkmate. Mate with queen and knight. Let's go back to the game. Bishop takes knight was played. Bishop takes bishop on c3. Queen to g5, defending the g7 pawn with the queen. If black castles, then follows queen to g4, threatening mate in 1 on g7, g6, queen d4, threatening mate in 1. Black has no defense. For example, knight c6, queen g7, checkmate. Mate with queen and bishop, worth remembering. Let's go back to the game. Queen g5 was played. Rook e1, check, developing the rook to the open line. King to d8. If king to f8, then follows bishop b4, check, d6, bishop takes pawn on d6, check, sacrificing the bishop. Pawn takes bishop, queen takes pawn on d6, check, king g8. Now, can you find mate in 1 in this position? You have 5 seconds for it. Please pause the video. Rook e8, checkmate. Let's go back to the game. King to d8 was played. f4, sacrificing a pawn and attacking the queen. Queen takes pawn on f4, attacking the bishop on c4. Bishop takes pawn on g7, attacking the rook on h8. Rook g8, attacking the bishop on g7. Now white plays queen to g4, sacrificing the queen. Queen to d6. If queen takes queen, then can you find mate in 1 in this position? You have 10 seconds for it. Please pause the video. Bishop f6, checkmate. Let's go back to the game. Queen to d6 was played. Now, can you find mate in 2 in this position? Please pause the video. Bishop f6, check, sacrificing the bishop. Queen takes bishop on f6. Now, can you find mate in 1 in this position? You have 5 seconds for it. Please pause the video. Queen takes rook on g8, checkmate. Okay, That's the lesson for today from the Eugene Grinis Chess School. I hope it was useful and you enjoyed it. If so, push likes, subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave comments. And the last question for today. Did you find an Easter egg in this video? This is another interesting video for you. Firstly, you can always find it in the video description, and secondly, you can catch it in the last 10 seconds of the video. Thanks for watching.